Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to a very special edition of BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Wish you could see it. It's not in the dark. It's about 1:35 Pacific, about 3:35 Central, and about 4:35 Eastern. And it's a really special show done at the last damn moment. You can be guaranteed of that. Because tonight, Jesus, listen to me. Today, we're going to be talking to Scotty Roberts. Now, if normally you're used to seeing me under all this weird light, this is really strange. I haven't blown up like a vampire, which I customarily would do it during the day. But over here, you can't see it. That's a window. I actually have a window in the studio. And if you were to look up, there's a light up there, and over here is my standard light, so I don't have any dark studio or anything like that. But I just thought at the last very damn second, why don't we talk to Scotty Roberts? And the reason I say that is because I, like everybody else, I follow Scotty on Facebook, and Scotty has helped me out any number of times. For example, folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, did you ever wonder for a moment where that came from? Well, that's the logo that I use. And there's a reason that I use it, and that's because it was created by Scotty Roberts.
Hey, look at that. There I am.
Look at that. Just like magic. There he is. And I saw his post on Facebook, and he said, hey, if you happen to be in the area, drop by, chat. I'd like to talk to people because it's probably boring as fuck to be ensconced in a room and you can't do anything and you can't really see people and you can't interact with anybody.
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, maybe I can do this. I'll have to do it really quick like a bunny, but maybe I can offer, because I thought initially, okay, let's get Scotty on the phone. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's get him on the phone because he's not going to be able to get to any kind of a computer or something like that. So let's just chat to him on the phone. And Scotty said, okay, that sounds interesting, except why don't we do video? And I thought, okay, he probably either has to go up 4 flights of stairs or down 4 flights of stairs to get to video. But he offered. Okay, so there he is. His Gesicht is on the air for all to see.
Indeed.
So let me make this offer. You know, all this stuff came at the last moment. But if you guys want to chat with Scotty, we have a chat room. Let me go to comments. And the chat room, the best place to chat, if you go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. So go to YouTube right now. Go ahead, quick like a bunny. We'll wait. Anyway, go to the SHR Media YouTube channel and you'll see this show live, live. Click on that and then you can go into the chat room. Now, that means live, not loser, or libertarian, because I am partial libertarian. But if you want to chat with Scotty, go in there, find the SHR Media YouTube channel, and there's a chat room, and you can go ahead. That's the best place to chat, because if you do that, then I can do what you can see down here is I can put your comment up below. And I figure we'll run about an hour. We'll just bullshit with each other. And
hey, Phantom.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Well, the Phantom.
Cool. The Phantom knows. So when the thing gets out, when the promo gets out, and people who are looking at Scotty right now, who are going to be a lot more than looking at me, for obvious reasons, when they see where you can watch this, or go to my Facebook page, Biff Zeppi, and then all the places that FYI, you are late. Reaver of Common Sense. I have a graphic just for you. It involves my fist, and it goes something like this. Okay, that's important note from me to you. So if you want to chat with Scotty, and if you want to ask him a question, because basically I'm just going to be talking to Scotty about what the hell happened.
Sure.
Just all sorts of stuff. And like I see, about an hour, whatever, as Scotty said before the show, and you will particularly appreciate this, folks. Scotty
And
said,
those of you who are here, if I might add in,
oh,
if
sure.
you want to share this broadcast link to your friends, have them come in. I've shared it with my friends, very last minute stuff. It'd be nice to have a bunch of people to talk to.
Sure. And like I say, that's the whole point of it, because I figured a lot of people, you're followed by literally thousands of people.
Yeah.
I'm followed by literally -3 people. So you far outweigh me. So jump in, ask a question, interact. That's the whole shindig with this right now, is to, in the meantime, while we're waiting for everybody to be cognizant of the fact that this is actually going on. Or the other cool thing is, okay, I will put this out later as a podcast. So if you guys have been curious about what happened with Scotty, if you've been following his Facebook page, or you're curious, maybe you just heard or saw just a bit of what's going on, but maybe you wondered, well, okay, what happened like earlier, and what happened to you in the hospital, and how did you get there? And I'm concerned about you, but I don't know much about you, and I kind of don't know the backstory. Well, if you're not watching live, Scotty will put up the podcast. I will put up the podcast. And if you can't interact because you didn't catch the show live, that's okay. That's cool, because you can still begin to understand what's going on, because this is Scotty. This is him live right there. It's not Memorex.
There
it's
I
him.
am. And if I can say, for those that maybe don't know, I've been doing radio for about 25 years. Some of it's been terrestrial radio. Some of it's been an internet broadcast radio. Some of it's been podcasting. And I was doing Intrepid Radio all the way up until about November, early December. And I announced, hey, we're going to take down this show, Intrepid Radio. In that form, had been running for about 5 years. And I said, I'm going to remaster the whole thing. We're going to rebrand. So we're going to trickle down, and then we're going to go off air for a little bit, and I'm going to rebrand into what we called Epic Life Podcast. And so right around that same time, it was Christmas Day is when all of this junk started. So that's just a little announcement about who I am, what I do, and so on.
Okay, but you've been doing this for quite some time, though. It's not like you just came out of this yesterday,
right?
Or last year or year before or something like that. The other thing, I want to put this back up maybe for people who just bopped in. Scotty doesn't just, oh shit. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. All right. When we get to the point where Scotty's chatting, I'm going to get up out of the chair, and then I'm going to go over there to my book rack and grab the book that he did. Now, the reason I'm going to do that when Scotty begins talking a little bit more is I want to show you guys the kind of art. Scotty just isn't a podcaster. He's a raconteur and an entrepreneur of the first degree.
Of the first order.
Podcaster, artist, writer, distinguished gentleman. And so I will show you a copy of the book that I happen to get from him as well. But we're going to continue also as long as Scotty believes that he can, because he said something similar before the show. He said something similar to, I will continue unless it's a better life through drugs, and they kind of begin to interfere with the neurons. So
that's a paraphrase, but it's accurate.
It's as close as I could get, Senator.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Let me talk to my lawyer. Okay. Now, I'm on heavy duty pharmaceuticals right now, and so I told Biff that I can talk. You put a nickel in me, and I can talk for 4 hours. And but the drugs sometimes that I'm on, that I have to be on for right now. They put me in a state of, when I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and just got out a day or two ago. They make me loopy. They make me feel as if Rocky Mountain High, like friends around the campfire and everybody's high. And it was glorious feeling. And but engaging in conversation, there was a point on some of these drugs where I was talking, and then I would start saying, I was talking to my two daughters. I have twin daughters who are 33, and one of their husbands. They were sitting there on a video chat with me while I was in the hospital. And I'm talking away, and then I said, and by the way, make sure that the dark rabbit gets behind the scrid, and so you can have some red lighting appearing on it. And I stopped, and they're looking at me, and, Dad, are you okay? And I said, where did that say? I have no idea where that came from. It was almost like hallucinogenic talking, dream state talking. And I would catch myself, and then I'd blink, and I go, be awake, mind, be awake. And I said, I think the drugs are starting to take over. So if you hear me start to lapse into something maniacal or
demonical,
weird,
whatever,
you can just say, hey, maybe it's time to let Scotty go. And so so you'll have to forgive me for that. Just had to say,
I figure it's my job to protect you as well, because
yes.
If your attorney is not here right now, but he did just send me a text saying, don't make Scotty look bad or there'll be hell to pay and pal to pay. And I said, in reply, I said, yes, sir, yes.
I'm a coming and hell's coming with me.
Absolutely. So let's start with, well, fuck, I may as well do this now. Folks, if you're a little bit squeamish, but this is truth. I didn't have a disclaimer because this is not a standard show.
And there's a long story behind this.
And yes, so let's start with this photo. This
hello,
Scotty.
That was me about a week ago.
Okay,
something like that.
That's one aspect. That's one angle. And I expect, as Scotty says, there's a story. Oh, fuck yeah, there's a story. Wouldn't there be a story if that leg belonged to you? And then there's this.
That's the other side
angle. And so I'm going to leave this up so you get a good, nice, healthy view. And then we can talk to Scotty about, holy shit, mister, what the hell happened? And what did that feel like? And take it, go.
Well, okay. I tell you a long story. I was, but I'll start by saying this. It was, well, let's see, what day is it? About 2 weeks ago. I was in the hospital 2 weeks ago. Okay. It was a Thursday, and today's a Saturday. So 2 weeks ago, Thursday, I thought they were going to take off my leg. And even the vascular surgeon said to me, yeah, we're going in. And this was when they rushed me to the hospital. I went to the ER. They rushed me to the hospital. And the vascular surgeon said before they were putting me down, we got to the hospital, they had the surgery crew already. They were taking me right into the surgical room, surgery. And he said, we're going to do our damn best to save your leg. And I said, okay, let's do it. Let's go.
Those are scary words.
So I went into this surgery at about 9:00 on Thursday night. At about 6:20 on Friday morning, they're reviving me and told me I'd just gone through about 8 hours of surgery on my leg. And the leg is still there. And the doc came and visited me a few minutes later and told me everything. And he said, look, so we're still concerned. Your leg, you had all kinds of blood clots in your leg. He said, I spent about 8 hours pulling all these blood clots out. I don't know if you got a picture of that, Biff. If you go to my Facebook page and scroll down a bit, you'll find a picture that he gave me of the blood clots. And you can just grab it and put it up if you want to.
Okay, let me see if I can.
And it was just, it looks
do
like
that.
a blue towelette with worms is what it looks like. Weird
Yes.
science fiction-y worms, but they were blood clots. But I hadn't had that before. It all started a few days earlier. And when my leg went numb from the knee down. So there's a lot of factors that led up to this. There is many of my followers know, and if there's some of you here that know me, back on Christmas Day, I was coughing, and I felt like everybody in the family had kind of a cold and a cough. I'm the only one who got kicked in the ass by it. Apparently, my wife said I wasn't breathing very well, and I mumbled something about not being able to breathe well because of the coughing. So she took me to the ER, which I don't remember. My 15-year-old son was helping her get me to the car and into the car. She ran me to the ER, and she put me in there, and then they took me in, and she said, I'm going to go back and check on the kids and get the kids, because we've got 2 teenagers and a 10-year-old at home. And we got to we were at the ER, and apparently they thought my breathing was so bad that they intubated me, which is running tubes down my throat, and put me on a ventilator, which nobody approved. Nobody said anything. Now, the argument is, well, they saved your life, but nobody approved that. So I was intubated and ventilated. I have no memory of this. There was, for some reason, they transferred me to another hospital, and that hospital, if you're Twin Cities, we went from New Richmond, Wisconsin, over to Stillwater, Minnesota, to Lakeview Hospital. Somewhere in there, somebody removed the tracheal tube, extubated. Somewhere in there, somebody removed the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. They didn't. The going understanding, when I've talked to a lot of people, is that they didn't. There's a blow up cuff when they intubate you, and somebody did not undo that cuff, and they ripped the shit out of my trachea all the way up to my vocal cords. And when they pulled that out, or ripped the shit out of it, didn't tear through it, just. And so now that was a thing that was not really known. I went home after I was in the hospital for 4 or 5 days. They wanted, and I have no memory of the first 2 days there. The first memory I have of being in the hospital is looking over and seeing my 24-year-old son, Sam, walking through the door and coming over. He came over to read to me because I'd been unconscious. They put you in a little coma when they intubate you. And so I have no memory of anything else. It was a couple weeks later. Now we're into January, mid-January. I'm like, I am not breathing well. I'm getting full oxygen. We had one of those little finger oxygenation, whatever, the way to read your oxygen. And so I went back to the hospital. I said, don't intubate me. Don't do it. I just want to find out. And so they looked and they ran some tracheal stuff from the ear, nose, and throat specialist. And they said, you know what? You've got some damage down there. That's when we first learned there was damage. And at that time, by the way, I couldn't talk. I was talking in a whisper. That's about all I could do. And the thoughts that were going through my mind was, I do radio. I read books. To people, audiobooks and things like that. I sing, and I hear them now. I'm finding out it was when my left side of my vocal cord was frozen. It wasn't working. And
that's
I thought when
tool.
they did
like
this,
I said to you earlier, I said that is a tool that's every bit as important to you as it is your hands in terms of painting and creating.
Right. And so when I was with all of that, I went home, and then what happened was scar tissue started to form in my trachea. And what the scar tissue did was it took that breathing hole, breathing tube, and I was down to about the size of a straw for my breathing. And so I was, and it's still a little bit there. You can hear it. And so, like, going up the stairs, walking across the room, talking, my voice eventually came back, but talking was very strained, very rumbly, and a lot of heavy breathing. So, when I finally, I went back to the doc. They sent me onto the ear, nose, and throat people. They said, we're going to do an intubation, but it's a endoscopically down the throat, and we're going to, like a balloon, we're going to stretch your trachea out, which is a common thing that happens. What happened to me, only losing my voice and having tracheal damage, is about 1% of people who have this kind of procedure done. And so they blew it up, and she said, I'm going to tell you something. It's not going to last. This is just so your breathing is good, and we can set up and have surgeons go down in there and take a look at it. Mm-hmm. So they blew it up, and I was like, whoa, miraculous. I can talk, and I can breathe. And it took about 4 days for that thing to close down. And they had already made appointments a couple weeks out to see the ear, nose, and throat. And so they rushed that up. And they did a surgical procedure, but where they knock you out totally. They went down, and it's called a rigid bronchoscopy, and they scraped all the shit out of my throat. If you saw a picture of my trachea, you could see the larynx, and down past that into my trachea, you see the pink soft tissue there. But on the bottom, it looked like somebody had dumped a bag of rock salt. And that was the scar tissue. They call it granulation. And they scraped all of that out of there and pulled it out. And they were scheduled a second one because they wanted to do it again to make sure they got everything. But I was great after that surgery, which was about a little more than 3 weeks ago. And but at that time, they pumped me full of steroids. They told me, now look, you're diabetic. You're going to have to really watch this because steroids could elevate your blood sugar. And amongst many things also that steroids can do. I'm sorry, I was talking over you. What'd you say?
They're an inflammatory also.
They are. So they pumped me full of those. I went home. I felt great. But and that was on a Wednesday. And by the weekend, and my breathing was good and all that, by the way. By the weekend, I was feeling a little, I got a little neuropathy in my feet and toes. So when my blood sugar goes up, I can feel it stronger. And I was feeling it in both feet. And I thought, wow, steroids, I got to watch it. I got to really watch my insulin intake, blah, blah, blah. By Monday, I woke up in the morning and I sat up, and my left leg was dead from the knee down. No feeling, crap. No nothing. And I stood on it, and it had blistering pain. And I said, okay, this is not right, obviously. And I thought, my mind's going to, my leg fell asleep, and it's also the steroids have bumped up my blood sugar. I was in the 600s and 700s. If you're diabetic, blood sugar should be between 70 and 100. I was, that's normal. I was in 650 and low 700s during that weekend. So I'm doing everything I can I didn't want to rush to the hospital, but I'm watching my blood sugar, and I was out of it. And so we're leading up to what happened to my leg here now. So Monday, that happened. By Tuesday, I called my doc, practitioner or general, went in, and he said, I don't know what this is. He said, I don't think it's anything overly serious. You could have a pinched nerve in the back. He gave me some drugs for pain, and there we went. By Wednesday, the pain was growing. Thursday, I have a friend from high school who reconnected with me. We hadn't spoken in over 40 years. We graduated in 1978. So it'd been over 40 years, and he just reconnected with me out of the blue a week or so earlier. He is talking to me, and he apparently he had made it very big in insurance, was fairly well-to-do, middle class, but he had something very similar to me. He was, a practical invalid. He had to walk around with a walker and all that, and we got to talking. And he had invited me over. Come on over. He says, let's have some scotch, some single malt Highland scotch.
Of course.
And cigars on the veranda. And, if you're poor, it's a patio. If you're well-to-do, it's a veranda. Veranda. And so I said, let's do that, buddy. And Thursday, I started driving to his place, which is about an hour drive from here, in the Twin Cities, and I'm over the border into Wisconsin, rural Wisconsin. And I got about a mile from my house, and my left leg is where it is, not my driving leg. My left leg was just throbbing. I even pulled over. I pulled off my boot. I had like a military boot on, and my sock, and thought that would help, and it didn't. So I turned around. I called him and said, dude, I'm not coming. And he said, you know what? Go to the ER. Tell them what I have used for pain and see if they'll issue you a prescription. So I said, I'll do that. So I called my doc. He's out for the day. I got to see a medical or physician's assistant by 6:45 in the evening on Wednesday or Thursday. And she said, she looked at it and I could tell, I'm not touching this. She goes, I have the authority to issue prescriptions, but I can't do this. She said, I need you to go to the ER and have them look at it. So I drove a short distance, and I was going to go home. I left there and I went, ER. What do you get at the ER? You get 5 hours of sitting and waiting around and sitting on a table, and then they issue you an aspirin and send you home. And so I wasn't even going to go. I'm not going. I'm not going to the ER. But to get home, I had to go by the road where the hospital is with the ER, and I thought, something told me, go in. And so I turned in, and I went to the ER. They immediately did a CAT scan and a couple of other tests on my leg. They sent it up to the specialists at Regions Hospital in St. Paul, which is about 35-minute drive. And the vascular surgeon, Dr. Rosenthal, he called them because they came in and told me this. And he said, stop everything you're doing, drop everything. He said, you get him on an ambulance right now to Regions. And which is what they did. They right away, in 5 minutes, there was an ambulance there. They were already packing me up to get into the ambulance. And so the ambulance rushed me to Regions. I pulled in there. It was by this time, it's about 8:30. And the Doc Rosenthal was standing there, the vascular surgeon, head of vascular surgery. And he was there, and that's where I had mentioned earlier. We had that little conversation. I went right into surgery. And 8 hours later was when he told me, we're going to try to keep your leg. So that brings us up to that. And those pictures were when they, it was a day or two later, those gory pictures when they were, oh, look at that. Now when they went into my leg, all those things, he had several tissues full of those. That is blood clots. Those are blood clots that had formed in my veins and my arteries in my leg. And so he spent 8 hours pulling that shit out of my veins. That's why my leg is splayed open on two sides. And he said, Scotty, I couldn't get all of it. He says, they're like your veins. Sometimes they go into clusters. He says, so there's still some in there. He says, but we got enough out where there's blood flow to your leg. He said, the only problem is we aren't getting a pulse below, like halfway down my calf into my foot.
That's bad.
And he said, so, which means the blood flow is not working. So we're talking, and I asked him, I said, Doc, I said, now you tell it to me straight. I said, you don't have to soften any blows. I said, I'm a big boy. I wear my big boy pants, I told him. And I said, I'm confident in life. I said, and I'll go with what we have to do. So you tell me, you have to cut off my leg. And he looked at me and he went, yeah, we do. He says, you're going to lose that leg. He said, and then he went on to say, but we're going to take this very slowly. I'm going to leave those wounds open. We've got a couple of sutures that are there were like 4 long sutures over the big wide one to hold it open from just totally splaying open. We're going to leave that open for 2 days. And we've got to get blood flow in there. And he says, the only way you'll keep your leg, he says, if you can keep your leg, he says, I will be surprised. And I said, okay, doc. So you're saying this, and I was talking to him just like this same tone of voice. I said, okay, doc. I started calling him doc right away. I said, doc, you're telling me I'm going to lose that leg from the knee down. And he was showing me where he would probably take the leg. He says, we have to have enough of there for blood flow and to be able to attach, prosthetics or whatever. And he said, yeah. I said, you're saying to me that my leg is already gone. And that unless you see something, let me reword it. I said, miraculous, surprising, that I'm going to be walking on a peg leg. I said, yeah, that's pretty much the truth of it right there. I said, okay, boom. And I put up my fist, boom. I said, then I'll go with it. I said, you got to take the leg. Let's just go. Let's do it. Let's get this done. And I said, then I can say, "Arr, I'm a pirate." And he kind of chuckled at that. And so then we went into surgery. No, I'm sorry. This is after surgery. And so now there is a story that has to be told here that I have not told yet. And I was kind of saving it, the bigger portion of this, for when I launch Epic Radio, which is still in preliminary launch stage. But I'll tell you here. And I'm going to tell you something, brother. This part of the story involves a lot of spirituality. It delves into the esoteric. It runs headlong into the divine supernatural.
How could it not?
How could it not? Exactly. And you know me, I have been somebody, and for those of you who don't know, I had seminary training back in my early 20s to go into ministry. I worked in a very conservative fundamentalist Baptist setting. And I got a little disillusioned with the policy or polity of the Baptist church. And I said, look, I'm not a Baptist first. I'm a Christian first. If I'm a follower of Christ, then I follow Christ. I don't follow, because I heard one of the seminary professors say, I am a Baptist first. And I said, no, I am not. I am a Christian first. And I choose to denominate with Baptist. And so I left the Baptist church, and I went immediately into. I always like to say I went through 2 years of seminary and went immediately into advertising. So I was in advertising for the last. There it is. I was in advertising really up until 9/11. And after 9/11, I was sporadically, I hopped from little ad agency to little ad agency and really just started doing my own thing as an artist, an illustrator, graphic designer, art director, all of those kinds of things on a freelance basis.
Okay,
so that's what I've been doing my whole life.
Just a second.
Yep.
Stop here for just a second, because while you were talking, I went out and got this. So I want to embiggen me here so that you guys can see this. Can I put it big? No, I can't.
Clouds.
I know, clouds. All right, this is close as it's going to get. This is the book. When I said Scotty is a podcaster and a graphics artist and an author, this is the book that I bought that he had written and illustrated. And it took me a while to get this. It's a little difficult to acquire. But if you look around, you can probably find copies of The Sword in the Clay.
You can actually go to I think it's theswordintheclay.com or just swordintheclay.com. There is a website there.
An incredible book. There's the front. There's the back. Let me show you as I didn't know I was going to be doing this podcast today, but let me see if I can show you some of the incredible quality images.
And by the way, if I can say, I've also written a lot of books and had them published through my publisher. And so I've got written books on things like the Nephilim, the giants, the reptilians. We did a book on Moses as a historical figure. Who was he? And then this is some of my illustrated books. So this is written. It's about, I don't remember how many words, but it's like a kid's illustrated book for adults. It's not a kid reading. Hi. It's my 13-year-old daughter just stepped in. She just broke her finger today at doing volleyball tournament.
Yeah,
so
I have to get surgery now, Dad.
Yeah, I know.
She busted it on the growth plate, and he's like, "We can set it."
It's my beautiful wife talking.
We can set it, and he said we should set it as best we can until you see the surgeon.
Here, Rowan, come here.
So
this is Rowan Claire.
Ow.
And she was playing volleyball at a tournament today and busted her finger. Now they got to do surgery on it as well.
My finger was
Bent sideways. It's pretty wild.
And it's because I was going for this ball and this other girl was going for the ball. And she went down and dived for it, but she saw I was also diving and she like sat backwards and I jammed my finger into the bottom of her shoe.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Oh, sideways.
It's like an offhanded kick. Here's my wife. I'm going to turn this. You know, I'm on his radio show.
I'm good.
But you're beautiful and awesome and sparkly. Why don't you come on air?
I don't want.
She don't wanna. She's not dressed right or something.
And I didn't even realize I broke my finger until I actually looked at my hand.
Wow.
It hurt.
Ouch. Well, I'm telling some stories here. Show your hand. And I'm sorry that happened to you. I really am. We're gonna have two people now that have to elevate limbs in our household for a while.
Oh, that tickled.
Oh, sorry. Okay, get out of here. Scram. I'm gonna do this show. I love you. All right. So I'm not sure where I was in talking in that story, but yeah, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Then he had it. I was telling you about the fact that it has become a great, to me, who knows a lot of stuff, has gained a lot of knowledge over the years, teaches things. I'm somebody who has come across, I've kind of gone agnostic over the years. There are certain things I believe, but there are things where I say, I can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Somebody would say, well, what do you do with Jesus? I said, I don't do anything with Jesus. I said, Jesus did for me. And I believe certain things about Christ and salvation, salvific nature of who he was. I believe all that stuff. I don't believe churchified versions of it. And so I was, some people call this my Damascus Road experience. And if you don't know what that is, it was the Apostle Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He was Saul of Tarsus was his name, and he was on his way to Damascus with writs of execution for Christians, without getting into all the politics of how that worked. He was a Herodian. When he became a Christian, he was a Herodian Christian, Romanized. So he's on his way to Damascus. His story is a bright, shining light opens up in the sky, knocks him off his horse. He falls on the ground, and somebody speaks to him, and he says, "Who are you?" He said, and the voice came back. This is in the biblical story. I am Jesus, who you are persecuting. That's who I am. And he says, I don't remember the whole story, but it's like, what do you want me to do? He says, I want you to believe me. I want you to go. And so this, and he was blinded for a few days until he was sent somewhere to these Christians in hiding in Damascus, I think it was, and they healed his eyesight. And that was his story. And he changed his name. I'm going to be Paul. He's the Apostle Paul. I have seen God. I am an apostle. And whatever you believe about that, there's a lot of people who think Paul wasn't a real apostle and so on. Maybe the real apostles, the disciples, were the only apostles. But they said that he was the one, and that he was one too. But that's the experience he had that someone compared to the experience I had in the hospital as a result of all of this. So, by the way, if you didn't catch all this medically, this leg was going to have to be cut off due to all the tracheal stuff that led to the steroids that bumped up my diabetes, my the stuff in my leg. And from Monday to Thursday is when those blood clots that you're looking at formed in my leg, and I almost lost my leg because of it. So, if you don't mind, I'll lapse now, or I'll segue over into what has become for me an incredible divine experience. Now, I never gave up God. I never gave up my religion, my spirituality in Christianity. I never gave that up. But I tossed out a lot of things, like I say, but I didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I would still talk about it a lot. To my Christian friends, I said, oh, no. And I became very agnostic. Some of them thought I became atheist. I said, no, I have not become atheist. To my non-Christian friends, even my atheist friends, I said, oh, no, I haven't come that far. And they say, you're so Christian. You are so unchristian. You are so Christian. That's what I was facing over the last few years. I even said on my own radio show, we were talking about, because my radio show encompassed a lot of different things: history, archaeology, science, a lot of politics. We talked about comparative religions. And I talked about this one night we were talking about, I don't know what, but it involved the power of prayer. And I said, I have come to the point where I believe that there is no efficacy in prayer. I said, not that God doesn't hear it. I said, but that prayer sometimes does not change anything. That's just us uttering words.
Is this the point where I say something similar to, but wait, there's more?
But wait, there's more. Yes. And so that was my position on prayer. And so now, fast forward to where I was in the hospital. And of course, I think my wife mentioned it. So it got all over. Then I finally mentioned it the next day. Here's what happened. Hey, I'm in the hospital, guys. And thousands of people that didn't make it public, people that texted me, people that all over were praying for me. Now, when I see that, hey, I'll pray for you. Sometimes I believe it, sometimes I don't. Because I've done the same thing. Hey, I'll pray for you, man. And you never think of it after you say that phrase. It's not me. It's not my stuff. I don't see it every day. Prayer, when we say I'll pray for you, it's a way for us to commune together on the positive side, for fellowship, and to exhibit the power of being together to support and plead to God for something. On the negative, it's a thing that even though we think we're being positive, it's a salve. Hey, oh, you got that thing going on? Let me reach in my bucket of salve. There's my prayer salve. I will pray for you. And we go on and do our own thing. And forget about it. I always tell people, like I did with this one, I said, hey, if I cross your mind, just say a little prayer for me. If you're not Christian, put out some good energy for me. I'd appreciate it. And what I've come to believe is that I started getting into the place where I don't ever say to anybody, I'm going to pray for you. Because I sometimes think my prayers are ineffectual because of my position before God right now. Don't know that he exists the way I thought he always existed. That's where I've been for a long time. And by the way, I can even say now God is a little different than you might think he is. This whole thing, and I don't have any special power or a revelation to be preaching that, but I'm going to tell you something. God is not who we always think he is, and I think there's so much to support that. There's religion you can find in the Bible, in your churches, and everywhere that teach you how to live, but understanding how God really works, we've got a superficial glimmer of a light coming out from under the doorway to what God really is. And so I'm sitting in the hospital, and I said, I even prayed. I said, God, you know where I am. You know who I am. You know what I am. You know what I believe. You know what I've been talking about for years. I said, but if you are there to hear what I have to ask for, I said, I'd appreciate you hearing it. And I said, whatever you want to do. If you take my leg, it's not you taking it. If God did not answer those prayers, all those people saying, save Scotty's leg, you can't come back later and say, well, God took his leg. He didn't. God didn't intervene. God said, there's a purpose here for something. And thank you for praying to me. I'm hearing you. I'm not deaf to it. But be patient and see where I'm going with this. And I think God allows things to happen. So prayer, we always got in the habit of saying, well, no is an answer too. No, I'm not going to save his leg. That's not God being some asshole up there going, now I want him to lose his leg. That is punishment for the way he's been thinking for the last 30 years.
Let me ask you a question if I could.
What's that?
Let me ask you a question if I could.
Please ask me.
With all of this that occurred, absent, let's say, prayers, because I'm sure lots of people did that, myself as well, and we have a little prayer. I
appreciate all those people who did.
But let me then point at this. Did you not then discover essentially how many people you have out in the world that watch over you, that are concerned about you, and that care for you? I should imagine that those numbers were revelatory for you. All the people that were in your corner rooting for you.
And as a matter of fact, part of this whole story is there were people I hadn't talked to in 30 and 40 years. Like I mentioned, my friend, he'd only made contact with me a couple of weeks earlier. I had another friend who I've had a friendship with for 30 years who just reconnected with me. We speak once or twice, not even annually, just once or twice. And he got in touch with me. There were some people I don't even know who know me and follow me. I don't even recognize their names. And hey, Scotty, I haven't talked in a long time. I want you to know I'm rooting for you. I'm praying for you, so on. So there's this whole world of people that were joining in. And that astounded me. And this is where it goes. Now we're going to take a little right turn into what some people might think is the mystical part of this, the mystical, spiritual part of this. I'm thinking my leg is going to be gone. And as a matter of fact, my twin daughters, who are wonderful, amazing, loving, beautiful, giving people, it's just the way they are. They have for the last 15 years have had a mermaid tail company where they make mermaid tails.
I've seen that.
They have become the multimillionaires in our family for all practical purposes. They are the way I raised them. I was a single dad for many years, and I raised them. And their younger brother, who's 9 years younger, I remember telling them, the first thing that shoots to my mind, there was something going on, and I said, I think he was in Braveheart. And they were talking with me over breakfast. I made breakfast for them every day. That was cool. I loved that. I'd get them up at 6:30. Their bus came at 8. So when they were in middle school and so they come out, I'd cook pancakes. We do omelets. We do all that stuff. That was the family tight meal ended up being breakfast every day. And we had the big computer on, the big screen, and we'd be playing videos about things and stuff. But one of the things I told them was, you do what you believe is right, is what the conclusion of our conversation was. I said, don't let anybody prevent you from taking a stand for what you believe in. I said, if you're not part of the crowd with your opinions, I said, then screw the opinions of other people. I said, you stand. You do what you believe. And you know what? They grew up that way. They don't always agree with me on things politically. They'll take a stand against me. But they're strong people, but they're loving. And when it came to that, my girls were the girls that would hang, and they're beautiful. My girls could have been in the cheerleader type, they're that beautiful, identical twins, and they could have been in that clicky, high, nose in the air, snooty type. We're the pretty, powerful, preppy people in school. They didn't. They stuck to what they did. They were artists. They loved literature. They put themselves out to find the people who were the weaker ones. Kids in wheelchairs that people shunned. Weren't mean to, but shunned them. My girls added them into their friendship group. Come on over. Let's do this. They were always like that. I remember standing with my dear late friend, Uncle Dave Potter, who passed away 2 years ago. We were standing in front of the big picture window in my house, and we had this big, deep front yard, trees in it. And I saw a bunch of kids were playing over in the next door neighbor yard, and they were picking on my girl's younger brother, who was 9 years younger than they are. So he was 4 or 5, or I think 5. And my daughter Bryn came over, and all we could see, we couldn't hear him. She's pointing at the sky. We could see her from the back. She's kind of, whatever. Some big kid. And Sam was my son. They weren't picking on a 4-year-old. I don't know exactly what was going on, but somebody was being picked on. And Bryn went in there and told this guy off, and this big, ugly, probably 12-year-old backed off. And Uncle Dave Dave said to me, he says, look at that. He says, look at that. He's backing down. He's backing down. And we're laughing. And she kind of turned and glanced back there about 60 feet away from us, the window. We see her turning. We go, whoa, and we back up so she didn't see us in the window. But that's what I taught them to be. All right. The point I was making with them, they're out in North Carolina. I get a call the morning after the surgery. Now, my wife had been updated all night long by the surgeon. What's going on? He called her a couple of times. And he told her, we're probably your husband's going to lose his leg, etc. And so my daughters, my miraculous, beautiful, Disney-minded, we make your dreams come true with our business, called me up. Oh, yeah, he inflated me with the heat into that. And I never knew those things existed. Do you want a warm blanket, or would you like us to inflate your suit or your apron that they put on you? And it's
the suit.
I said, let me try that. It was warm and it was nice. But my daughters called me and they said, hey, Dad, we've been kind of updated from Rainey. What's going on? Glad you're there. We just have one thing to say. And one of them, or both of them together in this voice, they go, you better be bringing home a really fancy peg leg.
And, matey.
So there's my kids. Nobody's weepy. Nobody's scared. Because my position was one of, damn it, I'm going to lose my leg. But you know what? I said, I told my daughters then, I said, I want one of those really cool prosthetics. I said, I'm not going to get anything that looks like a human foot. I said, I want one like, there's a guy named Albert Lynn that immediately came to mind when I thought I was losing my leg. He does National Geographic shows. He's an Asian American, and he's the guy that goes in with the radar, and looks at like old ruins that are 4,000 years old and reconstructs them and things like that. And he's been all over the Middle East, all over Africa, everywhere, and climbing mountains, climbing ruins. And he's got from the knee down a prosthetic leg. And I said, I want one like Albert Lynn has, so we can continue doing this kind of stuff. And they said, and I found out later, they told me that they had already been scouring all the possibilities of that kind of a leg for me. So everybody on this end, I said, I told the doctor, I said, I need to be calm. I need to be confident for my wife, for my children, for my relatives, for anybody else. And so I was very accepting of it. Yeah, I said, hell yeah, I'll miss my leg. And I'm sure there's going to be a day where I'll go, fuck, where'd my leg go? I said, but for the most part, I said, I think I have a good enough attitude to say, well, this is the way it is. But so let's get on with it. That's what I told my doc. I said, let's just get on with it. Let's do what we have to do. And he appreciated my attitude. He says, I love your attitude. I said, why? How could it be anything else? Yeah, that guy. That's Joey.
Joey Jones.
Right? He's a commentator on Fox News. Yeah, look at that peg leg.
And was in the military.
And, look at his upper body.
All the time. The dude is a stud. The dude is amazing. And he has done, he hasn't let, as you wouldn't have either, he hasn't let that stop him.
Right.
At all. Because the two of you are similar in terms of, that's the fortitude.
This is it. Would I rather have my leg? Yeah. Can I get by on a good prosthetic? Sure. If I have to. So here we are. We're sitting for a couple of days in the hospital now. They've got this wrapped up, but they've got the wounds open. And several times a day, they would come in and check my pulse in my foot. And they would run a little Doppler radar, which is a little pen about that long. And Doppler, just a ultrasound. You hear the swooshing stuff, and they're looking for a heartbeat. And they're not getting one. And by day 2, the doc is saying, still no heartbeat. Mm-hmm. He said, let's see where we're at in the morning. We'll leave this till morning. So now, in the meantime, my friend who's laid up from high school, who we just reconnected with, out of the blue, he calls me and we're talking. I told him, and he said, now here's the thing. You can tell somebody in a text or in a message or verbal or whatever, I'm going to pray for you. And Dan said to me, he says, I'm going to pray for you. He says, but can we do it right now? Do you mind if I pray for you right now? I said, let's go, brother. And I'll preface this by reminding you, when I looked at the doc and said, are we going to be able to save the leg? And he said, no. And I said, okay. And he said, the only thing, he says, if you're going to lose your leg unless something surprises me. And that's what we're waiting on. I'd need to see a surprise. He says, but that's where we're at. And so Dan offers up a prayer right there on the phone with me. Very confident. I remember, even biblically, God says, when you pray to me confidently, boldly, believingly. There's a verse in the book of James chapter 1, that talks about if you find yourself in trials or tribulations, hardships, they say, and if you lack understanding, ask of the Father, who gives to you freely and liberally. But don't ask doubting. He says the person who doubts their prayers is like someone that's driven by the waves on the sea and tossed about. But ask boldly, believingly. The Father will hear what you have to say. So I've always believed in being bold in what you believe. That's what I taught my daughters. And so Dan, he starts his prayer, and he's not demanding anything of God, but he starts, Heavenly Father. He says, my friend Scotty here, you know him. He needs your help. And he said, we pray that you will save his leg. He says, but further, he says, what I really want to ask you is push that aside and show the surgeon a surprise.
Okay.
And so I said, thanks, Dan. Thanks for praying for me. And that kind of became my mindset right there and I wasn't quite into it yet. Hadn't quite affected me deeply. So let me skip that. I'll go on. There's another guy who called me out of the blue. I've known him for 30 years. We don't talk a lot. We've talked twice in the last 6 months. He's a movie producer. And some of you might recognize him. But he's also an atheist. And we've gone in our roundabouts about ghost hunting, which I did, paranormal investigations, God in general. And he would be what I would call, he's hardcore atheist. And in some instances had to be almost a promulgating atheism or promoting atheism, a champion of being a non-believer in a good way, if you can call it that. And we'd had our conversations many times. And he called me out of the blue that morning after. And he says, Scotty, he says, I saw what was said about your leg. He says, I'm going to tell you something. He says, you know me. We've had our go-arounds about faith and stuff. And he says, you have so influenced my life that I got down on my knees and I prayed to your God, who I do not believe exists, to save your leg.
That's rather astounding. That's a hell of a testament.
And I told my general practitioner this, and he started crying. I have to watch myself. I break on this. And so I had another phone call that had come in while I was in the hospital just after that. It was my old pastor from Hope Evangelical Free, which was probably one of the very best churches I had ever attended with my wife and kids. My ex-wife and kids. It's hard to believe it was 33 years ago. My twins were infants still when we started attending that church. And his name was John Larson. As I got to know him, I started calling him Parson Larson. And he and I have had such amazing talks and so much. Grumpy Stack is here. Grumpy knows who I'm talking about when I mention Parson Larson, because I've talked about him many times on the radio. And so he called me up out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in years. Scotty! And it came up on my phone. It said John Larson. So he was still in my phone book. And I go, Parson! And it was the happiest, if I can use, almost religiously, it was the most joyous, wonderful, amazing conversation I had for an hour with anybody. And we're in the hospital. We're laughing. We're recounting things and talking about stuff and what he's doing now. He had resigned out of the church after I had left the church when we moved to the country. It was too far to go on Sunday mornings. And he's in a ministry that works with or helps. If you've ever seen that movie, Cry Freedom, about kids that are kidnapped, kids are the marketing of children and things like that. And he's in a ministry that's involved with that. And we talked about that for a while. And I told him some of these stories. And as we're leaving the conversation, he says, Scotty, before you go, I just want to remind you of one thing. He says, something you just told me. He says, you made an atheist pray for you.
Pretty astounding.
He said, that's astounding. He says, take that to heart. Now, the culmination of all this is the miraculous part. The next morning, they come in. I'm still splayed open and takes the Doppler. He walks in. He said, good morning. I said, hey, doc, this is the head of surgery. And he puts the the pen tip of the Doppler right on the, if you look at my foot there, it would be the second toe, between the second and third toe from the big toe, and down about an inch. He sets it there, and all of a sudden through the ultrasound, you hear whoosh, 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 whoosh. And the doctor looks up at me. I'm going to put glasses on to kind of mimic what he did. He's like this, and he goes, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "I do." He said, "That's your heart beating." Whoosh,
Nice.
which they could not detect for the first 2 days, which is what would have made him take my leg.
Yep.
And he takes off his glasses and he goes, "I'm shocked. That's a surprise." That's a fucking surprise. What did my friend pray for? Remember, he said, "Yeah, we got to take your leg. That's the truth of it." He says, "I'd have to be surprised for us not to get there." And what's the first words in the first 2 sentences out of his mouth when he detected a heartbeat? "I'm surprised." And I said, "Doc, I knew you were going to be." I said, and I told him a little later that story of all of this, the prayers, the people, everything coming up. And when we were in a conversation the next day or so, I told him, "You know what, Doc?" I said, "When my people were praying for this, I said, don't pray for the leg, pray for a surprise for the surgeon." He said, "My friend prayed for you." He doesn't know who you are. He prayed for you. And he said, "Let the surgeon see this." And I saw that twinkle in the deep of his eyes. If you know people and you know how to look at people and you know their expressions, you know what they're feeling, you have any empathy at all, I saw that he didn't just say, "This is fantastic. We're saving your leg." I'm surprised. There was that twinkle deep in there that was showing that how happy he was. And we were all happy. And so he stood up and he says, "Let's get to it." He says, we're gonna start sewing this wound up and try to make it." And they kept checking that twice a day. They'd check my leg with the Doppler, make sure the pulse was still going. Sure enough, it was. Then they eventually began to feel it with their fingers down there in my foot. Grumpy Stack says, "I've been praying from afar for you, Scotty." Grumpy Stack, I know you were. Thank you, brother. You and I are going to have a conversation soon. And
this is also recently.
That was yesterday, sitting in the I got this big old living room chair that my twin daughters bought that chair, had it shipped up here, big electric chair. They go, is comfortable to sleep in it, to keep my leg elevated. And those are all my pills I'm now taking. The big one is the daily pills, and the small one holds all the extra weird hallucinatory pills. I think that's why they separated them out. They said, "Take these as you need them." I took them yesterday.
Better life through chemicals is what I say.
That's right. And I would tell people, my daughters would call and say, "I can talk, but I am loopy as hell." You know? So for me, the Paul on the Damascus Road episode that I'm saying, this was my Damascus Road. I have had my doubts. I've had my failings. I do not believe in foxhole conversions. Those are conversions or changes of heart that are predicated on danger or something serious. I don't believe in those, and I don't do them. I'm one who tends to, when that danger comes or those things happen, to look at it and say, "Hey, this is happening. Fuck that, because we're moving this way." And but I had my Damascus Road experience. I can now honestly say that I saw the hand of God working. And it wasn't to save my leg. That's not what God did. God made a miracle happen that wasn't supposed to happen to show the surgeon something. to show everybody around me something, that the reason I did not lose my leg was not for any other reason than God was showing who he is and the power that he has. And I can hear him up there saying, Scotty, there it is. Now, on top of all of this, I had a lot of other things going on. I had people calling me, some I haven't talked to in years, again, saying, Scotty, I got this thing I got to tell you. And they typed out a couple of weird sentences, and they said, this is prophecy that's being given to me, and I have never had that happen. I've never had that feeling before. And the message was more like a, come back to me. Let's get this going. Let's move forward. I had a person that I work with, Terry Squires, and we did those, if you remember, the Ancient Heroes trading cards that we did. We did them 30 years ago, where I draw all the characters, and they were like biblical trading cards of biblical heroes and villains. And we redid them 2 years ago now, it is. And it was on the 30th anniversary. And she called me and asked me out of the blue, would you be willing to take this card set and don't do new art, but just update them? Sure. And I went through and I updated some of the art, and some of the art I didn't like, and I redid them totally. I did things that were missing backgrounds and stuff like that, where we had a yellow background. Instead, I put in the background that should have been there. And we re-released the Ancient Heroes. And you can look at my website. If you go there, ScottAllenRoberts.com. Allen is A-L-A-N, just in case you don't know. ScottAllenRoberts.com. Scroll down the front page. There's a display of a bunch of the cards and stuff. There you can see what they look like for this new set. And she's got me just a couple of months ago, hired me to do another set on the life of Christ. There it is, right there. The Ancient Heroes. That's what those are, my drawings, my artwork paintings. And that's the set we made. So now we're doing one on the life of Christ, a 48 card set to augment that, or to go along with that. So Terry, the woman who owns all this, she called me up, and she sounded almost nervous. I don't think she was nervous at all. She just didn't know how to say what she was going to say. And she said, Scotty, she says, this is something. It was almost like I wasn't sure if I wanted to call and tell you this, but something hit me. She said, I was studying in the book of Zechariah for something she was doing. She's got her own television show and stuff down in Nashville. And she said, Scotty, this is prophetic, is all I can put it, where God's talking to Zechariah. And she read these verses to me where it said, I don't know what they are, or I'd read them to you point blank. And she said, Scotty, this God said to me right then and there. He put you distinctly in my mind and said, Scotty, turn back to God. Come back. And the verses had all of these, and these are two people who out of the blue came to me with the same message, saying, this has never happened to me before. This is prophecy. God's telling me to tell you this. And it wasn't like, Satan is ruling, and God told me to tell you this. And it wasn't like that. It was people that were a little nervous because they'd never had that before. And
can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Might I suggest that one interpretation might be similar to, you have more work to do here, sir.
Yeah. That's what many people have said that to me, and I agree with that. And so one of the people said to me, I don't even know who it was. It might have been Parson Larson. It might have been it wasn't Terry, but it was somebody else said to me, do you realize how influential you are? I said, don't say that to me. I said, if I start saying that or thinking that of myself, I'm going to become cocky and prideful, and I influence a lot of people, so shut up. It's a little scary, but they said, do you know how many people you have reached, how many people you are influenced by? Even my friend, the atheist, movie producer, who said, I prayed to a God I don't believe in for you because of the way you influenced me.
Correct.
So I've had a lot of people starting to come out and say that to me. And I'm no puritanical anything. I'm somebody I can be raw and nasty. I've done a lot of bad things in my life. There are things I can never, ever, on the grand esoteric scale, step back from and have it be forgiven, have it be something that is, it's things I've done. I've been a bad person in life. I've done bad things. I've done horrific things to people. I haven't murdered anybody, but there's other ways that you can hurt people. But I've also tried to really do like the things I teach my daughters. That's the kind of person I want to be. And so what I come out of this with, those prophecies that people are giving and things saying, I got what Terry was saying, and I heard God through those words saying, Scotty, come back to me. It doesn't matter. And nothing else matters. We're in the now. So come back to me. Come on. I'm right here. And I picture when I was talking to Parson Larson, I said, I remember a time when you were preaching in the church. Because I wasn't preaching, he taught from the pulpit. He was a magnificent speaker. And not polished, he was genuine speaker. And he said, he was telling everybody, he says, if you got stuff, he says, God doesn't care that you're that far away from him because of your stuff. He says, leave your stuff or bring it to him. And this is Parson Larson. He says, God's standing there with his arms open wide. And in the context of our church, Jesus is there with his arms open wide to take your junk. And he says, you can see, he's there say, if you need to spew on me, spew on me. I'm there to take it for you and enfold you. And the big message that was coming through to me from these people, nobody was preaching at me. Nobody was doing anything. They were relating things that they were afraid to tell me, was God is looking at me through them. And he's going, did you hear that? I don't care that you think the things you've thought, the things you've done, it doesn't matter. What matters is now. I've done things to show you that I'm here. You want to come back into the fold full force? So I'm going to tell you something, brother. And anybody listening, and I'm stuck in the hospital. So I wanted to shout it from the rooftops, but I wanted to wait until I got a podcast together and start talking about some of this stuff. But I'm telling you, this is the first time here and now to anybody that I have not become a Bible thumper because I've been one of those. I know the stuff. But I've become somebody where when I was younger, I used to ask, why can't we be wise when we were young? Why can't we be wise now? Instead of waiting until we're old and white-haired before wisdom starts to come and seep into the cracks and make its way to our head and our heart, is that I've gathered so much knowledge, and wisdom is just knowledge applied. But it's there, it was floating there, it's stuff I could pick and choose. And what happened with this leg in the hospital and the prayers is that it has made me a person who is a firm now, unadulterated believer that God is who he says he is. And I am a Christian because I believe in Christ. I believe what he did. That power is there. I could preach that. I couldn't before. My wife's grandmother used to say to me, Scotty, you should start a church. This is because of some of the books I've written and the things you're talking about. I said, I couldn't start a church. I wouldn't know what to talk about. She said, talk about what you believe in. And, but so I'm at that place where I will make a public declaration at this moment, no matter what you think of me, what you believe of me, what anybody has to say. I am a full on board from the heart and brain believer in Jesus the Christ, in God, in the biblical text. I might still argue elements of biblical text because I think that there's a lot there to be still. There's things I don't believe and things that I believe must be meaning something different. I don't believe it's a fable. But you can look at me now and I now believe in the efficacy of the power of prayer, which I didn't going in. And some of my listeners, Grumpy Stack, knows this. I haven't. I'm just a noob to the walk with Christ, says Grumpy Stack. We all are. So I had a life-changing experience, but some people are looking at, oh, well, you thought you were going to lose your leg. Of course you are. That's where I said I'm not a foxhole conversion type of person. If you know me, you know better. I was the experience of the head knowledge because I had already accepted it. Oh, my leg's going to be gone. Okay, we'll get a peg leg. And I'm going to move on and I'm going to do some cool things. But the process of the saving of the leg, I was like, oh my God, that worked. And the prayers that were given up were not for my leg, they were for the surgeon. And I told him that. He was very touched. It was one morning, he came in to check my leg, and he is wearing a necklace under his scrubs, and a little Star of David came out and was swinging as he was down here. And I said, oh, I see the Star of David. I said, I'm assuming you're Jewish. And yes, he is. And I said, most of my family is Jewish. My mom's stepfather was a Jewish man. And then we talked about that a little bit. And that's where I told him a lot of what I believe now and a lot of what I'm thinking now. So there you go. That's who I am as a result of all of this. Somebody who has intellectually, my Parson Larson said, Scotty, he said, you've intellectualized your Christianity for a long time. And he said, almost intellectualized yourself out of it. I said, I did. And he says, now you got something you can look at from an intellectual standpoint and open your heart to it. He says, because there's Jesus, there's God standing there with open arms saying, come to me. Come on. I can hear, I like to talk about it this way. I don't like to say the high and mighty. There is the Lord God Almighty standing or sitting on his throne with his arms open for you to come and, no. I see God as saying, come on, you got it now. Don't worry about anything else you've done. You're here. Do this now. I'm here for you. I'm rooting for you. I stand with you. Just come back to me. And I did. So that's where I am as a result of all of this. That's why this happened. My leg, you look at all the interworkings of the things that God does. My leg had nothing to do with me. Until it comes to this part of it, the conversion part. Type of a conversion.
Or would you
this
say...
could have happened for Dr. Rosenthal.
Could you say it was an extension of what you've already done?
Maybe. So that's where I am now. That's where this took me. And
let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Because you may or may not realize that we've been on the air for an hour and a half. Not that far.
I just looked at that myself.
From a full 2 hours.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. And Grumpy Stack's been in here, and that's been very kind, making a lot of comments.
Amen, Grumpy Stack. I'm right there with you.
What is in, maybe two questions.
Yeah.
What's in your sort of immediate future? And then looking long term, maybe a year, maybe a little bit beyond that, have you been thinking about I do have some plans. Here's some short-term kinds of plans because heal obviously is being one of them, So, but in the midst of doing that, here's a little bit longer term plan. And then when things are more healed, I have even a more long-term plan than that.
Well, I tend to be a guy that kind of looks at where I am and say, this is where I'm going, and I'm going to work toward that. Nothing's going to change dramatically. I'm still going to do my art to live. These are this new, like I got laying right here. It was on my desk when I walked in. Everything was right where I left it. These are some of the preliminary sketches for some of the characters for the Jesus card set. These people. We're starting with Ruth and Boaz, the story of them, because Jesus came, and they were the great grandparents of King David. And Jesus came from the line of David. And so these are some of the initial character sketches I had done. I'm going to still do that. I have Epic Life Podcast, which we were going to launch in December, which didn't happen, or January. January 3rd was the launch date. Welcome to the new rebranded Intrepid Radio as Epic Life Radio with a little different formatting. The format was going to be stories, the stories of our lives, the stories that happened to us, some fictional stories. Yeah, Doug, it does feel great. That's what Epic Life was going to be. I was not going to do politics at all. I was going to talk about mostly focusing on the things that make our life epic for us, from the little things to the big things. And then, of course, I had to put it off because I was in the hospital. And then that tracheal stuff all turned into the leg stuff, as I explained. The steroids, the leg, all of that. And then I was in the hospital for 2 weeks on that. And it's like, I'm never going to launch that thing, am I? What's in the way? What's preventing me? What's stopping this? And all of this is, and I lost my voice. I didn't think I was going to get my voice back. And there's still more to do on my throat.
Okay, but stop there just for a second, if we could. I'd like to point out the obvious. Captain, come in here right now, if you would, please. Captain Obvious is sitting right in the chair next to me. And I would say, would you not quantify that your voice is about 95% back, and that's an extremely critical tool for you, and you have acquired it back?
My voice is back. I feel it when I talk. It doesn't hurt or anything. I just feel it cloudy and like a little breathy. It used to be I couldn't, and you could hear it. Now you can't hear it as much. Hold on a second.
Hour and a half.
I have my injured daughter coming in. What's going on?
We're going back to the ER.
Going back to the ER? What you going to do? You going to set it?
Yeah, because, well, the reason I wouldn't let the guy do it at the other one is because I don't know them. I don't trust them. And he didn't put that on right either. So who says he would
go get it set. Right? Go get it. Come here. I love you.
It.
I see it. I see it. That was her broken finger. She didn't want them to set it at the time. They wanted to go to the surgeon. Now they're gonna go back. So where are you going?
Good.
Which one?
In Richmond.
In Richmond?
Because when the hospital we went to first was in St. Croix Falls.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So because you were at the tournament.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that or Lakeview. So which is 15 minutes away. I love you.
Let me see.
Hang in there.
Oh, you're cold.
I'm cold. It's cold down here.
Yeah. This thing, he like left, these fingers were hanging out like this, and then these fingers were separated like this. These are supposed to be together and up. These are supposed to be down, and my wrist is supposed to be like this. My wrist was like this in it.
Okay. Yeah, go get that taken care of here. Go throw that on the table over there.
Doesn't know
Thanks.
what the heck he was doing. He could have broken my finger even more.
He could have.
Yeah.
It could hurt getting it set, or it might slide right in. So.
And I don't want their freaking Novocaine, so.
Yeah, you don't have to have shots. You just got to get a bullet and bite on it. Give me that bullet, doc. Okay, do it. I'm ready.
Okay, I'm leaving.
Get it taken care of right now while she can.
Bye. Yeah, my poor girl. She's an athlete. So Grumpy Stack says for the last year and a half, I've gotten drunk every day. Last Friday, the first day of convention, I've drunk since then, but haven't gotten drunk through many years and prayers. Absolutely outstanding, Doug. That's good. Well, you were asking me about my plans are to just sit back down and do what I'm doing. I want to build Epic Life and eventually launch that.
Okay.
I'm already thinking June 1st, but my doc said it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks for this to actually heal. So I got 2 wide open. There's the one wound, the smaller or thinner one on the other side, the inside of my leg. He didn't even put sutures in it. He said, that's already going to form its own scar tissue.
So it's going to be left exposed, or it is currently left exposed.
It's exposed.
Like that.
What they do is there's somewhere they put they put this kind of yellow, it looks like yellow tape over the wounds, and it's infused with stuff, pharmaceutical, chemical stuff that makes it not stick to the wound, so you can keep it open and put it over it, and then they wrap it up. That's the state it's in right now. It's wrapped up, and if I was limber, I'd just swing my leg up and show you. See, I'm sitting here in shorts.
Well, there it is. And if you look at the photograph,
yeah, there's my toe. Here's the real one. There you go. So it's just wrapped up, and it's comfortable. It doesn't hurt right now. It doesn't hurt usually. I'm not getting a lot of pain out of it. I had taken some painkillers, some oxys, and some other narcotic they gave me that also could make me hallucinate a little bit. And I took those 2 nights ago, not last night, but the night before. And I went all day yesterday, and I had no pain in that. And I took an oxy this morning when I got up, because what woke me up was my leg hurt.
Right.
Yeah, I'm walking. I can get up and walk. I can walk anywhere. Grumpy, I walked around. I've been home now. This is the 3rd day since hospital. First day home, I was pretty, second day, I got up and I walked around. I picked up some junk in the yard and, took the garbage out, walked around the yard a little bit barefoot. And my office here, my studio is 14 steps down into the basement, what you would call a basement, but it's finished. So it's the lower level. So I've been walking. I walk fine. The doc said, you can walk all you want. He said, just be mindful of the leg. He says, for the most part, though, he says, you need to sit and keep it up. It's got to be at about this angle. And so I sit in the living room chair most of the time, and I sleep there. This is more comfortable than trying to rig something up to keep my foot up on the bed, which the master bedroom is down here, too. Yeah, there I am. I'm in the...
There's... regular
leg,
right, and then there's with this one, just
and then there's my dog,
just bound.
She came up to sit on my lap, cuddle with me today.
I missed it. Where's your dog? Oh, is this your dog right here?
Yeah, that's Lucifer.
Pillow.
No, that's Lucifer. She is a pug, mini English bulldog cross. So she's got some of the pug coloration and features, but a little longer snout and taller. So, but so I have to keep things up.
She's been your good friend.
Yes. Now, my doc said I may very well have to walk with a cane the rest of my life. I am going to have to be on certain drugs. It's not coming to my mind, the name of it. It'll come to me, for blood thinners, incredibly powerful blood thinners. That I saw their effects while I was still in the hospital. I had a little nick or something on my legs because I always bump into junk, and I scratched it, and I didn't realize it. There's a little tiny nick on my leg, and I'm standing in the bathroom shaving at the hospital, and I realized I've got a pool of blood at my feet. Not a lot, just pool a little bit in the water, and so I saw bloody footprints across the room. That was me. And here's my other daughter. That's Ellery, my 10-year-old, and her friend. I can't remember your friend's name, friend. Harper. Does that mean you harp a lot? Harp. I need that now. Harp, harp, harp. So, but they've just come down to visit.
Oh, there we go. Sure.
So,
You need a mohawk. Why not?
I don't have much left up there, but you can make a mohawk out of it. Look at that. So that's what they do. I do, Grumpy Stack. You know what I was thinking? Grumpy Stack says, awesome, brother. You need a badass Jesus cane. And I thought, I originally thought, if I have to have a cane, it's got to be styling.
Oh, and, yeah.
You know what popped up was the Barnabas Collins cane from Dark Shadows, the curved wolf head cane, silver wolf head cane. And so my daughters told me, you tell us what cane you want, we'll get it for you. Just send us some links. That cane was really expensive. Put it there. They said,
1 second.
They said, that's very cool. Is that what you want? I said, well, let me look around a bit. There it is. That's what I wanted to get. Still do. Just pop cultural value from my childhood. And I looked at other canes. I was looking at all kinds of stuff. And I said, I don't want the ones that just have a round thing at the top like a ball. I said, I want the handle type of a cane. So we were working at this. And I said to my daughters, now remember, they do the mermaid tails. So they do a lot of sculpting to get designs ready to cast them. Hey, I thought there was Ellie who's still there touching my mohawk.
I know, I need to keep the mohawk.
Yeah, you got to keep that mohawk active.
Yeah.
It needs attention.
She's grabbing the hair.
And so I said, one of my favorite books, and this is not just to show off the book. Hey, Ellie, hand me The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare. Should be right in there somewhere.
Shut up.
Oh, did it get taken out of? Oh, I see it. See the red book? Kind of red. Go to see the sword in the clay? Nope. See the sword in the clay? It's right next to it. Green, dark green. Thank you. So this was the first book I ever had published. And it was, there it is, The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare. And it's fully illustrated. It's like the length of a kid's novel. It's about 30,000 words, something to that effect. And so I said, maybe instead of a wolf, why don't I do something with Tam and do, it doesn't have to be necessarily him exactly, but like a hare on like the wolf head. Instead, you have the hare's head and his ears go back over the curve like that. And I haven't found one that's been made. We could probably find somebody to carve it and do it.
That would be
then
cool.
My son-in-law, married to one of my very creative, amazing daughters. Oh, this is mustache wax. I don't think you want to use that on my hair. Whenever my daughter gives me a mohawk, I got to stand under the shower for a half an hour to wash it out. They're dead. That'll be a mohawk for a week now. So, my son-in-law does 3D printing. And we were all talking yesterday. They were all going somewhere. We're all sitting in the car. Yeah. See, now I like that, but it's not what I want it to be. I want it to be, you took that design of the hair and melded it with the wolf head cane where there's a curve to it. So my daughters who sculpt and are artists, I said, why don't we make I'll draw something up of what I like with Tam O'Hare. I'll send it to you. Bryn jumped in. She goes, I can sculpt that. And have her sculpt it. And then Zach is going to print it out in 3D. In materials. He can use metallic materials. He can use whatever. And he can print it. And so that, I think, is going to become my cane. So there you go. See, that's pretty cool, too. But it wasn't exactly, if somebody gave me that, I'd use it. But I'm looking for something, it's like that. If it was a gift, you'd go, oh, that's very cool. But I want it to mean something. It's like tattoos. I got a tattoo of Tam O'Hare on my arm. There. You can only see him. I'd have to stand.
My first tattoo will be a One Direction tattoo.
There you go. There it is.
That's very meaningful.
So I wanted it to be meaningful and real.
Is this your hair
So-
gel? Is this your hair gel?
That's beard. We got to read it.
Oh, my bad.
That's beard style. Beard conditioner.
Oh,
There you go. There's my kid. She's the one who does makeovers on me. Dad, can I try a makeover on you?
go get my makeup.
No. We're not doing that right now. Not right now. Because I'm on somebody else's show. But there you go. That's the stuff. I'm going to invest my time in doing that. I want to write more books. I've got one that I wrote about archaeology that hasn't been published yet, that the publisher has just waited to do it. There's no reason. It's not like it's not good. He said, yeah, look at those. Those are very cool. But I want it to be like the curved wolf head, so that we're looking into maybe doing our own for that. But I got to have a cane.
Yep.
This has got to be styling. So, as to your previous question, far future, I want to get the Epic Life podcast going.
Okay.
I want to start doing things that invest in the future. I got to have a financial investment for the future. So when I die, should it be many years out, my family's taken care of, which they aren't now. If I died today, my family would be struggling. So there's my plans. As for the heart divine stuff, that's now going to be incorporated into that. So there you go. That's where I'm thinking right now.
Okay. All righty. It's been almost 2 hours.
It has.
Anything that you'd care to let people know additionally right now?
All I
And
would say, if you want
any
to,
further thoughts?
if you'd like to talk to me, you can. I'm on Facebook under, I think it's Mr. Mr.Scotty.Roberts when I set it up. You can go to my website, scottallenroberts.com. You can reach me there. If you want any of my books, you can see them there. theswordintheclay.com. Do me a favor, since you've got that up, click where it says click here on The Sword in the Clay. That's the website. There's the archaeology book. There it is. And if you scroll down, you'll see right there at that website is how to buy the book. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that. So people, I'm available in many various and sundry places where you can find me. And there's my Facebook page. So it'd be a pleasure to talk to anybody.
Outstanding.
Thanks,
What do you-
Grumpy. He said, call me later. Thank you. I miss our chats too, brother. So, I'd love to ask God to save my hair. Then I'm just joking. It'd be nice if I could apply all these things I say about my leg to my hair. I made your hair grow as a miracle to show people I'm here. I can do what I say to. You know what mustache wax is for, darling? Watch. I'll show you. You're putting clumps in the middle of the mustache. Take a little clump like that on your fingers, pinch it and get a piece, and I do this. I wax my mustache.
Yeah.
So you look like the Mayor from Paw Patrol?
Nah, it's just I like that style.
Paw Patrol? Okay.
I don't twirl it and make big twirly things. Some people like that. Just a little bit. That's what I do. So that's it, folks. That's all I got. So,
all righty. Thanks for being here, and thanks for taking the
thanks
time.
for having me. I
just thought it would
appreciate
be interesting, since I had read in Facebook today
Don't put too much on it.
that you just want to have some people pop by and chat.
Yeah, I
And
was
that's
sitting
what
outside this morning in the sun on the driveway and having a cup of coffee, and I just put, hey, if anybody wants to stop by, I'm here. I'm here for 2 months. I'm here all the time because I work here too. It's my office in the home. But if you want to stop by while I have to sit with my leg up, come on by. Hang out with me.
Sure. And in lieu of
And,
that, I thought the next best thing was, hey, let's throw your face on a show and have you give folks an update about what's happening with you right now.
I appreciate you doing that. This is the first one since I've been home. So
very nice.
Thank you, brother.
Sir. Appreciate it.
I do too.
Bye.
Bye.
And
See ya.
Thank you, friends. Folks, we're going to wrap this up. And Scotty's going to go do what Scotty's going to do. I'm BZ. I'm not even going to go out with some music or anything like that because the show today, during the day, it's not about me. It was about Scotty Roberts. So I'm going to throw this out in a podcast for those people who were unable to see it live. And I'm going to send the various links to Scotty. He can do the same thing. And for those people who are wondering what's happening with Scotty, go to his site. He'll probably put it out. I'll put out a bunch of links and you can rewatch the show in podcast. And you too can be kept up to date in terms of what's been happening with Scotty. Everybody, thank you for watching. Scotty, thank you. God bless, sir.